Hi, and welcome to another thought-provoking and, dare I say, provocative ideas exchange podcast episode. Today, we are continuing on the theme of leadership, and I have got a returning guest, one of our Ideas Exchange community members, founder and CEO of the All Things Are Possible group, Shawn Naidu. And I think it's also a topic that just transcends time. So I am hoping that even if you are watching this a year from now, 2 years from now, that the topic is still very much relevant. And I do hope that by then we have made and managed to make a transformative shift when it comes to leadership. So now, as you are going to watch this podcast, I do hope you make a concerted effort to stick around until the end. Yes, it is long, but it is a podcast filled with a wealth of information. So have a notebook ready, have a pen ready, and bring an open mind. I promise you will not be disappointed. Enjoy the episode. To say that again.
Women who pray for each other, all right, praying hands, will not pray on each other. If you are a woman and you are watching this broadcast, let me say this: we don't need we don't need you in leadership.
Fortunately, I know you, so I'm not nervous about what you're going to say. Shawn Naidu, welcome back to Ideas Exchange. Listen, leadership is such a deep and rich well that I think we need to kind of chat on a couple of more nuances about leadership, and one of them now is around women in leadership, specifically within the backdrop of character-based leadership. And just a teaser to our subscribers out there. Next topic we're going to touch on is youth in leadership. And again, Mr. Naidu will be joining me. And for those of you who haven't seen our first podcast, a quick reminder of who we are. So my name is Inga Love. I'm the founder and CEO of IL People Solutions Consulting, passionate about all things organizational transformation and people experience. And I partner with businesses through coaching using the methodology of neurolingual programming and life coaching to help get people to realize their strategy and bring about the change, the transformative change in their businesses. And my like-minded associate, Mr. Shawn Naidu, is the founder and CEO of the ATAP group. ATAP is the acronym for All Things Are Possible group. And just quickly from your side, Shawn, maybe just reiterate what your philosophy and your ethos is behind the All Things Are Possible group and what you guys do and how people can work with you. And we can circle back around to that again towards the end of the episode.
Thank you, Inga. Well, welcome to you again, and thank you for the opportunity to meet with you and have this chat with you. I enjoyed the first session that we had recently, speaking about leadership and character, and we're carrying on that trend today, but specifically around women in leadership, and character. All right. So like you said, the name of the company is the All Things Are Possible group, the ATAP group. We are an accredited skills development service provider in South Africa, but our focus is quite unique. We have a program that we have created and developed revolving around leadership and character development. And so while there is a focus on skills development, our forte, our passion is leadership and character development. That is where our passion and our focus is. And so whenever you hear me talk, whenever you see the content that I put out, I just can't help myself but speak to that. I just naturally progress. I try so hard to talk about other things, but I just cannot because it's in my blood. And during the course of the session, you will just see how critical it is within leadership development, within skills development. everyone is talking about everything else except the character of people and the character of
Yeah.
leaders. And I'm in a space where we are addressing character, leadership, and character. So I encourage our viewers to stay connected. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be provocative. You are going to be hearing some stuff that you probably don't want to hear. So hold on tight to your seat. I often say, Inga, sometimes it's almost impossible to do leadership development or people development without offending people. And so
Absolutely.
not that we're intentional to offend people, but to get one person or an institution or people from one level to another, you gotta have a reality check and say what needs to be said. And in the space that I find myself on in terms of leadership and character, people tend to get nervous when the word character comes on the scene.
Yeah.
People are happy to talk about their skill set. They're happy to talk about their
Absolutely.
accomplishments and their academic qualifications and skills and where they studied, how long they studied, and the years of experience. But the moment you drop character in the mix, you would find that people get a little bit nervous. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today: leadership and character, specifically relating to women. So thank you once again. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I've got, excuse me, I've got no doubt that this is going to be a very challenging conversation. And especially, I think, in the backdrop of International Women's Day that we celebrated last week, there's a lot of focus around women, women in leadership, women in business. But I think so often we speak and focus on things that we're not always able to back up with tangible proof points, right? And I think not to divert the topic, but we see a lot of it happening within the realm of diversity, equity, inclusivity, and belonging, because we latch onto a theme, we latch onto a topic that sounds amazing. It sounds like, we want to rally the troops, but we're not really backing that up with provable, and yes, audience, I have just made up a word. Watch out for the launch of my new dictionary, but provable concepts to actually help people latch onto actionable elements and factors and criteria to say, okay, this is how you do it. This is what it should look like, and not just talk about it. And I think to track back to women in leadership, I also just need to underline and underpin our conversation, as I'm pretty sure that you would touch on the concept of women empowerment. Now, there's been a lot of women, especially, that have been speaking out against the word empowerment, and that it's starting to carry a negative load or negative undertone. And it almost, it's as if it's inferring that we don't have any power, we don't have a voice, we don't know how to actually step into that space of leading and taking the reins. And I do believe that, I don't think that was ever the intent of the term. I think, for a lack of a better, and I mean, look, language evolves, right? I do believe, until such time we come up with a more apt term to describe what it is that we are thinking, that we are trying to encapsulate, we will use women empowerment. And I do think that when we talk about women empowerment, what we are trying to say is that we acknowledge that you are a woman of power, right? But if you are in our camp that talks and believes lifelong learning, what it means is, it's not that you're now a person that has power and influence and that is it. There's opportunity to learn, there's opportunity to grow, especially if you want to escalate in your career, if you want to escalate and achieve higher levels of status. There's, for me, almost, I feel like, and I suppose, if you're a plumber, everything looks like a pipe, and if you're a carpenter, everything looks like a nail. And I mean, I come from the people and development, performance development background. So for me, everything looks like development, right? So empowerment for me, in my mind, is it's almost like it denotes that ongoing action of growth. So yes, I'm a
Mm-mm-mm.
woman of power and I'm a woman of influence, but I'm stepping up. I'm always leveling up, and that's how I'm empowering myself.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I hope that, yeah, I don't know. I hope I kind of managed to create a container
for
for
sure.
what it is that you are wanting to touch on.
Definitely. And the purpose of this podcast, Inga, is to further empower women. All right. It's to further empower them. And we know that women are empowered, they are being empowered. Absolutely great. And like you said, it's lifelong learning. All right.
Yeah,
And so uh, the more you grow in your leadership and the more you grow as an individual, it is because you are learning. And
yeah,
so the more you learn, the more you grow. And so part of the purpose of this podcast is to further empower women. But the difference with what we are going to be doing as opposed to everything else is we're going to be focusing on an area on leadership and character,
yeah,
which is often neglected within the space of leadership development and especially within women development.
yeah,
And so we during the course of this chat, we are going to be empowering women. We want women to join in. We want them to listen because
yeah,
we want you to take the insights that we're going to be sharing and see how you can apply it to your life. And part of what we're going to be talking about are going to be some bitter pills. There's going to
yeah,
be some hard topics and hard things that we are going to be saying, and it's going to be almost like a bitter pill that's hard to swallow. But if you are willing to stick through the process, just listen to this thing out and see how,
yeah.
take away whatever you feel that you would love to take away during the course of the session. Also, let it be known, Inga, we're talking on women development, women empowerment, and you've got as your guest a gentleman. Why?
Well, listen, I love to poke the bear. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I think that's just my answer. But I think the reason for it is that for us as women, we always tend to want to speak to other women when it comes to women empowerment, etc., etc. And yes, understandably, you want to speak to somebody that you can relate to, that can be empathetic, that has walked in your stilettos, if I can put it that way.
Mm-mm,
However, if you're somebody who are serious about growth, if you are somebody who are serious about stretching the mind, you also
mm-hmm,
need to step into a space where you say, okay, enough of breathing my own exhaust.
mm-mm,
Let me listen to other voices out there. And I think a lot of women cringe when they hear the word submission.
mm-mm,
It's a four-letter word in
mm,
the realm of femaledom.
mm,
But can I just say to all women that if you have got a line manager that you report to, guess what? You are submitting. If that line manager gives you instructions and you do it, guess what? You submitted and you still survived, right? Aside from the fact that, there might be some toxic leadership out there, maybe a different topic altogether, Shawn.
yeah.
But that for me in the business world is what submission looks like. And
Mm-mm-mm,
submission doesn't take away from who you are, doesn't take away from your value. But I
mm-mm-mm.
think
Interesting.
as women, let's sit and listen, and because we'll be able to pick up and tell, okay, because we can pick up when somebody's being a chauvinist or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
they mansplaining, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think it also takes a sense of maturity and a sense of EQ to actually put away all of those other stumbling blocks. Because if you get your back up, if you can't sit in a conversation with a man, for example, that
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
that has a passion for leadership and has a passion for seeing women grow,
Yeah, yeah,
um, then those there are other issues that you first need to deal with,
yeah, yeah.
to and once you deal with that, then you are able to free yourself up to actually listen and appreciate the message,
Sure,
irrespective where it comes from and
for
who it
sure.
comes from.
Interesting. No, I like that. And so the reason for me actually asking you the question was, you obviously believe that as a man, myself, I can add value to the life of a woman and woman in leadership with women within the corporate space. etc. And you believe that it's the reason why I am here today chatting to you about women in leadership and women leadership character development. And the reason why I pose that question, because there is a school of thought amongst women, especially women leaders and those who are advocating for women empowerment, that woman must be empowered only by another woman. Because they want to maintain woman empowerment, and it's part of their philosophy. And I know this to be true because in my dealings with some companies and organizations, in me wanting to present my leadership and character program, wanting to empower women in terms of their character, I was blatantly told, we love the concept, we love what you do, we believe you can have absolute value to our women leaders, but because you're a man, you will not be permitted to speak. Which I found very disappointing, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who the source is, as long as there's value in what is being said. And I thought I'll mention that almost at the get-go. And I know we mentioned this before, that you are not doing woman empowerment if you feel you need to disempower a man in order to empower a woman. That's not woman empowerment. And I'll say that again. You are not doing woman empowerment if you feel that you need to disempower a man in order to empower a woman. And I needed to make mention of that right at the get-go, because there are women who are expecting to see a woman speak to them in order to get value from them, because women supposedly know each other, understand each other, etc., etc. And women must empower each other. We must support women. And I fully understand that, fully agree with that. But there is something that men can offer to women that women cannot offer to women, and that's a man's perspective.
Yeah. Spot on.
Right. A woman can offer woman's perspective on woman empowerment and on woman. Absolutely great. There is place for that, but let's not discount the place that a man plays in the empowerment of woman, because he looks on the outside, looking in, sees things that women themselves don't see in terms of their own personal development. So I just wanted to make a mention of that right at the beginning, before we actually get into the nitty-gritty of what we are doing. So Inga, we're talking about woman leadership character development. My company, the All Things Are Possible group, like I mentioned, we focus on leadership and character development. And that is unique and exclusive to us, and because we find there's a huge need within society to empower people in terms of their character, not necessarily in terms of their skills. One of the greatest misconceptions within the skills development, leadership development space is to think that as long as you are developing the skills of an individual, you are developing the individual. And that's not necessarily true.
It's not the case,
In the people development, human development, leadership development, woman development has been one-sided with blinkers on in terms of just focusing on developing the skills of an individual. You are not your skill set, you are your character. And as long as character development is not part of leadership development, not part of woman leadership development, women leaders are going to be missing out on fundamentals of their leadership and their leadership success. And I usually say this, and I say it quite boldly and assertively, that you cannot do leadership development, including women leadership development, while ignoring the character of women. Because if you're not developing the character of a leader, what are you developing? And this is where the skills development space, human development, leadership development spaces, we are so focused on developing skills because we've been told skills development. Now, skills development will always be needed. I firmly believe developing the skills. We develop skills. If a client asks for skills development, we'll do skills development. But the problem and the challenge that I've had within industry and human development is that our focus is almost exclusively on developing skills, as if to say, the more knowledgeable you are, the more valuable you are. The more skilled you are, the more valuable you are. And that is not true. They say knowledge is power. And you and I have had this chat before. In fact, on our previous podcast, we talked about the fact that knowledge is not power. Because you can have the knowledge to know what is right and then not have the character to do what you know is right. Of what value are you? And one of the things that I normally say, of what value are you if your skill set solves problems, but your character causes even more? I'll repeat that. Of what value are you, especially as a woman leader, for those that we are speaking to in terms of women? What value are you as a woman leader if your skill set is solving problems, but then your character is causing even more problems? And so we want to focus on talking about the character of women. And I encourage women during the course of this session, and we're going to have follow-up sessions where we're going to be talking about youth leadership development, which includes also women who are youth. And so part of the focus of this discussion is to zoom in and say, women, empower yourself. We are here to support you. We are here to empower you. This podcast is here to empower women, but we want to do and talk about what others are not talking about. You go and sit in any conference around the country, nationally, internationally, Inga. They will talk about anything and everything else, even within women leadership development conferences, women conferences. They talk about everything relating to the industry, the space, who and what it is, and whatever the case might be. One thing you will not hear is someone speaking and challenging on the topic of character.
But just on that, Shawn, I mean, just based on, because you've got years that you have been dealing with this and years of working with people, to actually sort of pull back the curtain to say, it's all good and well to develop your leadership, but if you don't fix the foundation, then everything built on top of that just falls to pieces. So just from your observation, why do you think people shy away from being confronted or being faced with the concept of character?
It's we say personal development. We use the term, and companies use the term, we're doing personal development. I believe it doesn't get more personal than character development. What is more personal than character? So the reason why people shy away and almost uncomfortable when the topic of character comes in is because it is that personal. It is because your character is who you are. We are great at branding ourselves, Inga, as people who are intelligent and smart and gifted and qualified and charismatic and strong leadership, whatever the case might be. We are excellent in branding ourselves that way. What we will not brand ourselves in as people of character, why? Because that now shines the light on who you really are, because your character is who you really are. Listen, at the end of the day, your qualification speaks for itself. Your skill set speaks for itself. It's out there. People can see it. And that is where we focus on. And once again, it's a misconception to think that as long as we are developing skills, we are developing the person. So it is because it is that personal that leaders and people in general tend to get a little bit uncomfortable around the space of character development because they feel as if they're going to be judged. And we are not here to judge people. We are not here, even when we conduct our leadership and character development program and our offerings, we don't go in there with a club and a hurt and assault people, bash you over the head kind of thing. No, we don't do that. But we are firm, we are assertive, we don't play. I mean, we call things the way that it is. Once again, sometimes it can be almost offensive to people because it is that provocative.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you're saying that. And I mean, if I bring it back to women, because you were touching on branding, and I think with women especially, right, the way we also like to brand ourselves, besides what we've achieved, right, dare I say, it's the false lashes and the makeup and the nails and all of that. And I sometimes think that, human beings are quite interesting, that, they might initially be blinded by the facade of the branding. They might be blinded by the facade of the mask, but they quickly pick up somebody of character or somebody who lacks that, no matter what the facade or the mask looks like, right?
Yes.
And I feel almost like what you focus on with your business is you are literally taking a wet wipe and wiping off the makeup to say, okay, guys.
To reveal the real.
Yes. And so we're not saying there's anything wrong with all of this and putting yourself out there. By all means, pretty up the package. But let's ensure that the substance is of quality and of character.
Definitely. I fully agree with that. I actually like that. You used a quotation now recently. Remember, I'm not too sure if you remember the quote that you sent me, because, I love quotation. You sent me a quote that says, character is like pregnancy, like being pregnant. You cannot hide it forever.
Oh, of course, yes. I thought that was so profound.
Exactly. But here's the thing, Inga. Within the corporate space, within the world of work, people do not realize the role that character plays in everyday life. If they only understood, and especially within women in leadership, if you only understand the role that your personal character plays in your leadership, in your every single day life, you would have wished you had done character development many, many years ago. It is because we are not character conscious, and part of our movement, character development movement, and our mission is to create character conscious leaders and character conscious company cultures. It is because we are not conscious of each other's characters. In fact, we are not conscious of our character that we are dismissive of it, and we don't see the role that it plays. We are dismissive of what we do not understand, but what you do not understand plays a role in every single part of your life. Just because you're not fully aware of the role that character, your personal character, plays in your leadership doesn't mean that it has no value. Do not dismiss what you don't know, because what you don't know could be the defining factor in your leadership, in your influence, and the impact that you can have on people. And so we so focus on everything else within leadership. And this is the reason why we created a program specifically for women, where we say we want women to succeed. Listen, for women to succeed is a lot, much more harder than it is for men to, and we know the whole history, right? We women, men have the power, they have the authority, etc. Women on the sideline, we fully understand, and then women are gaining much strides in terms of leadership, getting to the place of influence, etc. But what we are saying is this: we don't want women to spend so much of time climbing the ladder of success that when they are reaching greater heights of success, they fall spectacularly because they did not take the time to build a character that will sustain them when they get higher. You know that any building, before it goes up, it needs to go down. In fact, the foundation that you lay determines the height that you will go. And so we have too many people, women especially as well, we're so busy climbing to prove a point, right? And listen, let's be real. Climbing to prove a point that you kept us behind for all of these decades and seem to be
because you're on a mission. You're on a mission.
Exactly. And but here's the thing: you are on a mission that is going to be a mission impossible to succeed if character is not part of your mission. And so we are coming alongside women and we're saying, as you are climbing, climb, lady, climb as much as you want to, as fast as you want to, as hard as you want to. But as you're climbing, make sure that your ladder is not standing on sinking sand, because if character is not present, your ladder is standing on sinking sand. You end eyelashes, hair, image, whatever is going to be falling spectacularly from grace, because character is not there to protect you. Not only does your character protect your foundation to make sure that you got what it takes to climb high, but your character protects you as you're climbing up. And so go ahead.
No, sorry, I just wanted to put a pin on that one, because what you are saying is so profound, and I don't want us to rush through that, because to your point, there's a lot of historical the battles that as women we need to fight. There's a lot of historical stereotypes that that we've been so almost to the point of being militant and combative to try and eradicate. And to your point, we're climbing, but I feel almost that and so here's the irony, at least from my observation, that with all of this climbing and to be recognized and to be acknowledged and to have that voice at the table, in the boardroom, we've almost clothed ourselves, or maybe disrobed ourselves of the very thing that we were trying to fight for, which is our femininity. And it's within that femininity where the value of women in leadership, especially, that is where the power sits, because the way we are wired, the way we put together, is that we've got this innate ability to have a sixth sense, almost like women have got very strong intuition. We've got this innate sense to be relational. We, to the point where, I think sometimes we are accused of being a bit too emotive. But I do believe if it's well balanced and if it comes from a healthy place, it is one of our superpowers.
Definitely.
And yet when we are climbing and we focus to fighting the good fight,
Mm-mm.
we actually inadvertently remove all of that, to the
Mm.
point where now you sit in the boardroom, your voice
Yes.
is heard.
Yes.
But heaven forbid, if my eyes didn't fall on you, I would have said that
Yes.
you a
For
male,
sure.
which is sad for me, because to your point, if you're not building on a solid foundation, that ladder is going to sink. And so as fast as we want to climb, I think
Mm-mm-mm.
as women especially always have to remember, especially because there's a mission involved as well, make sure that you always have to almost fortify
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
character and the skill, because the higher
Definitely.
up you can climb, the more is going to be asked of you.
Definitely.
And if you don't make sure that you keep on fortifying the character behind you as you're climbing
Yeah. Yeah.
higher,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're going to find that you're going to veer from left to right the whole time, which
Definitely.
is a very dangerous place to be.
Definitely, definitely. I love what you just said right now. But you know what's interesting? When character, and listen, it's undoubtable, right? It's
Yeah.
undoubtable that character is the foundation of leadership. Your skill is not the foundation of your leadership. Your
Mm,
charisma is not the foundation of your
yeah.
leadership. Your qualifications, your gifts, your talents is not the
Yeah.
areas, are not the foundation of your leadership. Character, personal character, is the foundation of leadership, and that's undeniable. That's not
Mm,
even debatable. You build leadership on character. You don't build leadership on skill. Check this out. Skill sets change and adapt depending on what you need to do.
mm,
Not all skills are
yeah.
transferable, Inga. You
Yeah.
can go and qualify yourself in a certain skill right here, right now. Within a few weeks and even a few months' time, that skill is outdated and irrelevant. And now you need to
Absolutely.
reskill yourself, because society and the world of work is evolving so quickly, so fast, that your skill set needs to change continuously. So what you knew at the beginning of the year, you're at the space where,
Mm,
oh my goodness, I feel as if it's becoming outdated. I need to reskill myself. Now check this out. Irrespective of industry, where you go, title of position, etc., industry and sector, character will never be replaceable.
mm,
Character will always be needed. Character will always be transferable. You can take
yeah.
an individual from anywhere, any part of a business or any organization, any sector and industry, and transfer them to another skill. No one will ever say, listen, the character that you had right there is not really needed. Yeah, you need a different character.
Yeah.
No, no. That's what makes character. Character is that it is unchangeable. It is what it is. Yes, it can be developed, but your character is transferable from industry to industry. Now, check this
Mm,
out. Talking about sinking sand, Inga, and we want to challenge women with this. As you are climbing, I need to warn and caution the ladies out there that are in leadership. As you said, the higher you get in leadership, the heavier the responsibilities come.
yeah. Yeah.
All right. And because of the law of gravity, what goes up must come down. And so the
Mm,
greater your responsibility, if your ladder that you are climbing is on sinking sand and not on a solid foundation of character, there will be the illusion of climbing and growth. But what is actually
mm,
happening is your ladder is sinking. So your ladder is going one step down and you climbing one step up. And as you're climbing one step up, your
mm,
ladder is going one step down. So there is the illusion of progress. Ultimately, you think you're progressing, but you're not actually progressing. If that
that's
makes sense to
powerful.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you really, really want to break the illusion of development and growth and success and advancing in your career and advancing in terms of impacting and influencing the lives of the people, you got to make sure that your personal character is in check, and it is in this, and it's in its place. And that is why we're talking about woman leadership character. Let me just make a few points,
Mm.
Inga, just regarding more specifically about women in leadership and their character. I've said this before and I will continue to say it, and I smile to myself when I say it, because I know it without an explanation, it can be almost offensive to ladies. But let me say this: we do not need women in leadership.
Mm.
If you are a woman and you are watching this broadcast, let me say this: we don't need women in, we don't need you in leadership.
Fortunately, I
As,
know you, so I'm not nervous about what you're going to say.
so you know what's coming also. You also know what's coming also.
Absolutely.
You know, I actually should have said that right at the beginning, just to keep people. Who's this guy to say what he said? I want
How
to hear
dare you?
more what he said. I think you need to cut and paste and put this at the beginning.
I think so.
So if you're in leadership and you're a woman, let me say this: we don't need you in leadership. We do not need women in leadership. What we need is women of character in leadership. I'll repeat. We do
Mm.
not just need women in leadership, we need women of character in leadership.
Yeah.
And Ninga, you know, there is a distinct
Amen
difference
to that.
between being a woman in leadership or being a person in leadership, whether
Yep.
you're a man, to being a
Yep.
person in leadership and being a person of character in leadership.
Yeah.
There's two completely different kinds of things. To be a woman of character in leadership, you got to develop the character of the woman in leadership.
Mm.
To be a man in leadership, you got to develop, to be a man of character in leadership, you got to develop the character of the man who is in leadership.
Mm.
Um, so the power of a woman in leadership is not just because she's a woman in leadership, but
Mm.
because she is a woman of character in leadership. Your power as a woman in leadership is not because you're a woman. And
Yeah.
I know that can be almost offensive to somebody. How dare you tell me that
Yes.
I'm a woman and I'm powerful because I'm a woman? Yeah, there might be elements of truth to that, but let me say
Yes.
this: your power is not because you're a woman in leadership.
Yeah.
It is because you're a woman of character
Mm.
in leadership. That is where the power lies. So as women continue to rise in influence and occupy critical leadership roles, they cannot lead with the same level of compromised character that their
Mm.
predecessors have led,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
different results in their leadership and different impact through their leadership. So we
Definition of
need
insanity, right?
exactly doing the same thing and the same.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: definition of insanity. It is because we have not developed our leaders in the past. We have not developed their character. That is
Mm.
why it has produced the caliber of leaders that we have today in society, in government,
Yeah.
in corporate, private, public sector.
Yeah.
I often ask the question, Inga, can you imagine what our current leadership would have been like today had we spent
Mm.
the time in their past, in our past, developing their character? But because we ignored the character development of our leaders,
Mm.
because we ignored it blatantly, we said we'll develop their skill. As long as they come out of university and they're academically skilled and they've got charisma and they can talk and they've got a good image and they brand themselves, whatever, they will be excellent leaders. The current leadership crisis that we have today is rooted in our
Mm.
inability and our refusal to have developed the character in the past. So my
And
question is, sorry to
yeah.
break the word. So my
No,
question
no,
is
that's
this:
fine.
are we going to repeat the same mistake? Because if we
Yeah.
are not bringing character development on the
Yeah.
table, if women are not doing character development, we are going to be producing not a different caliber of leader. We are going to be producing the same caliber of leader. It's just that it's going to be mainly women leaders.
Mm, sure. I mean, and I feel almost like you cast an eye on my notebook because earlier on you touched on something that I was going to ask you to clarify.
Hmm.
Because yes, even though we're focusing on women in leadership, but what I loved what you did was you actually underlined the fact that whether you're a female or whether you're a male,
Definitely.
this concept and the ask of you
Yeah,
once you step in a position of leadership, it's exactly the same.
definitely.
And it is about that character.
Definitely.
So yeah, I appreciate that you kind of made
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
distinction. Yeah,
And so we are not saying this is only for
yeah,
women. No, no,
yeah,
no. Irrespective whether you're a man, you're a woman, you're a young
yeah,
person, you're a youngster. Inga, and listen, we're even talking about children, yeah. And hopefully,
yeah,
if we have some time, we'll get into that today because the role that
yeah.
women play in raising children of character, all
Mm,
right, raising children of character. And so, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, this applies to it. But the reason why we are focusing on women is because we want to do something special for the women, because we know
mm,
that women have different challenges than men,
yeah.
because we know that women have unique challenges to them. We are saying in order for you to overcome the challenges, succeed through the challenges, your character needs to be in place.
Mm,
And so hence the reason why we are talking about this. So we need women of character to lead different.
yeah,
We need them to lead better. We need them to lead stronger.
yeah,
However, if they themselves lack character, they will lead no different, no better, no different than the way others have led.
yeah.
And so, woman of character is needed over and beyond just having leaders of character. And I often say, Inga, before we can have leadership with character,
Mm,
we need leaders with character. I'll repeat that. Before
mm,
we can have leadership with character, we need leaders with character. And so part of what we are doing is we are empowering women to be women of character. So while you're developing your skill, and at the end of the day, it's not character development and nothing else. It's character development plus every other form of development that you have going on in your life. Go and develop yourself financially, emotionally, spiritually, economically, develop yourself physically in terms of your health, develop yourself mentally. Every form of you needs to be developed because every part of you is critical. So why are we not developing your character, and yet you are your character? So woman of character is a woman of character is an unstoppable force of change. I will say that again. A woman of character is an unstoppable force of change. Women have inherited, this is significant, and I think we need to mention this, due to the legacy of characterless leaders. Women have inherited company culture, and societies of toxicity, brokenness, corruption, discrimination, and the abuse of power. Women now need to pick up the pieces and rebuild what was broken. That's a fact. So through developing their character, they can build better, build stronger, build different. But if their character itself is not in check, how are they going to build? You got to build the character of the builders so that the leaders, the women leaders, can build better, build stronger. One of the things that I often say, and I've mentioned this earlier on, but I need to mention this: of what real value are you as a woman leader if your skill set solves problems, but your character causes even more? And I know women are developing themselves, and absolutely great. We want to employ women and give space to women you know who are intellectual and bright and smart. But let me say this: great minds that don't have the character to match are dangerous minds. Great minds that don't have the character to match are dangerous minds. And your leadership is not credible. Woman, if you are a woman in leadership, let me say this: your leadership is not credible until your character is credible. Your leadership is not credible until your character is credible. Your leadership is not credible because you're a woman in leadership. Your leadership is credible because you're a woman of character in leadership. So leaders, and let me say specifically women leaders, but this applies to all leaders. Leaders with a character problem becomes everyone's problem. Leaders with a problem becomes everyone's problem. Inga, I know we had a chat about this the other day, but I'm going to mention this again at this point. Women who pray for each other will not prey on each other.
You have to say that again.
Women who pray for each other, all right, praying hands, will not prey on each other. And unfortunately, let's just take a moment, because I need to mention this. The character of a woman determines how she treats another woman. There are many challenges women are facing in the workplace. Other women should not be one of those problems. Women cannot be a solution to society while being a problem to each other. I'll say that again. Women cannot be a solution to society while being a problem to each other. I need to make a statement here that is undeniable. And if you're a woman, I'm sure you know this to be true. It needs to be noted with concern, though, that within company cultures, within the corporate space, the greatest abusers of women is another woman. Too many women are victims of another in the workplace. Why? We talk about setting the crown straight on a woman and women supporting each other, coming around each other, rallying around each other. And, we got this fancy catchphrases, Queen, let me put your crown straight, and whatever the case might be. But the same people that's putting your crown in place are the same people that's cutting off your feet so that you will fall and that you will stumble. And I know we've mentioned this before. Women are so concerned about putting the crown in place that the character is not in place. Your crown does not determine how you treat people. Your image does not determine how you treat another woman. Your image and how you look, and your brands and whatever the case might be, and your charisma does not determine how you treat people. It is your character as a woman that determines how you treat another woman. The reason why I'm focusing on this and making mention of this is because I know it to be true. Do you know, Inga, how often I get within my training and development and speaking to women in my audiences, and I hear the problems and the issues and the challenges and the levels of abuse and toxicity levels of abuse in the workplace. One of my very first questions is this: who is the abuser? And they often say to me, almost 90% of the time, it's another woman that is the abuser.
Yeah.
And because it is the character of a woman that determines if she treats another woman, I am saying this: you cannot have a woman being an enemy to another and still empowering each other. How do you empower your enemy? And so part of the biggest challenge that women are having in the workplace today is that they have women leaders who lack character. And when you lack character as a woman leader, whether you're a man, but specifically in this particular woman, if you lack character, you will abuse your position, you will abuse your power, and you will abuse people. Let me ask a question, Inga. Why is it that women themselves, and they've said this to me on many occasions, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, women prefer working for a man and with a man as opposed to working with a woman and for a woman?
Because we know inherently that we will be hurt
Exactly. Not by the woman. Now,
by
once
another
again,
woman. Yeah.
this doesn't apply to all women.
Yeah.
I'm speaking here of women who lack character. I'm speaking to
Yeah.
women who lack character.
Yeah.
So part of our leadership and woman leadership character development program is to empower women to protect each other as they are empowering each other. You know, we talk about GBV, gender-based violence, right? And I'm not too sure if I've heard this phrase before. I don't know if I've coined it or whatever, but I refer to it as SGBV, same gender-based violence. SGBV, same gender-based violence, not physical violence, but emotional, psychological violence in the workplace, intimidation, victimization, gossip, jealousy, intimidation, etc., within the workplace by a person who is a leader towards another woman in the workplace. And so what we want to do is we want to transform woman leadership and say to them, we want to empower you to empower women. We want to empower you to see the value in another woman and not see each other as competitors, but empower each other. And it starts within your character.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that inherently is the biggest issue in just, I think, modern day business corporate world. There is this fixation on competition, and I think whether most women want to acknowledge this or not, and I feel almost like we really have to debunk this whole thing around whatever you can do being men, we can do better as women. And for me personally, and I would imagine a lot of people might not agree with me, is that I believe that that is inherently incorrect. We have been created differently for a purpose and for a reason. And I think if you think about how men are put together, you guys are wired to conquer, right? And so yes, there is that internal drive to for competition. And I think almost that sometimes when you are manufactured, when something is manufactured for a specific reason, it will function in that reason that is manufactured for, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Women, and if I can bring it back into to how women and men are manufactured, women are manufactured differently. We know this, we see it inherently, right? But yet because of societal pressures and all of that, we seem to have this incessant need to change the way we manufactured. And it leads to detrimental results, as we see in leadership, right? Because we are built to care, we are built to relate, we are built to nurture, and yet
that's where the power is, and that's where the power is.
That's it. And because most, and I think the reason why it hurts at a visceral level when you are hurt by another female in leadership is that we know internally that's not how it should be. We know internally that the manufacturing code flies against that. And I believe that if we can just accept the fact that it's okay to be who you are and it's okay to function in the way that you are meant to function, because only then will you fully see the bigger potential of that power in you. And I
Definitely.
personally do not believe in competition. I believe that, because listen, there's over 1 billion people on the face of this planet. We are not for
Mm,
everybody. And it is
for sure.
okay if you have got 20. So if I look at it from my business focus, it is okay if there are 20 coaches in a room.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, heck, bring in more people, bring in more coaches, because
Mm-mm.
guess what? It's not everybody that will relate to one another. It's not
Exactly.
everybody that will be able to hear the message that the
For
other
sure.
person is saying. So, I mean, there's no need for competition. Let
Definitely.
it's about creating the opportunity and reach more people. So I think that in a sense also is what trips up a lot of women, because we want to now adopt that manufacturing manual the way
Yeah,
men
yeah.
are manufactured, right?
For
For
sure.
a, like, sorry for the crass term, manufacturing, but for how men are wired. And because
Mm-mm-mm.
we want to perform and move in a space that we weren't built for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What you see is you end up seeing abuse of.
Definitely.
It's almost like that. The word mimic is not what I'm looking for, but it is a false view of what it is. And so because of that, we're not moving in the way with the responsibility that
Definitely.
goes along with it.
And it speaks to identity, right? Because if you don't know who you are, you will be conditioned to become like everyone else because you feel that's where the power is
Absolutely.
at. So and that's part. Listen, at the end of the day, if you are your character, that speaks to identity.
Yes.
And so when there is a lack of identity, you would want to become like everyone else who you think is better than you. But when you acknowledge and realize, man, I don't need to, I don't need to be aggressive. I don't need to be harsh. I don't need to be, listen, woman, be firm, be assertive, etc., etc. We're not saying that a woman are pup and weak and whatever. No, 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 no. But there is that overcompensation,
Yes, that
the
is the
need
word I
to
was going to say.
overcompensate, the need to
Yes.
overcompensate to prove a point, and you don't need to because the moment you feel the need to overcompensate to show your value, you lose your value as a woman.
And you're not walking authentically.
Exactly. And there goes your power.
Yeah.
And there goes your power. And so a part of, the exciting thing is this, that that women are finding themselves, the women are seeing the value in
Yeah.
collaborating even with men. I read an
Yes.
article recently where it talks about with this woman, a woman herself said she actually didn't even spend too much of time celebrating International Women's Day because it becomes so one-sided. She said, why do we need to celebrate once a day? We need to celebrate every
Mm,
single day. But what was interesting, she went on to say that women mustn't think that they can be empowered without men,
mm,
because we need men within the space as well, because the current space that men occupy, you need men who see your value and your worth to actually help and assist. So this idea of thinking that it's
yeah.
just women that must push women forward and raise women forward and help women forward, while all of the men, even the innocent men at the bottom of the ladder, are looking up and saying, what about me? But you don't realize it is those men as well
Yeah.
that want to help,
Absolutely.
want to assist, want to push you up the ladder, want to
Absolutely.
open doors for you, want to
Yeah.
create momentum and etc. in your life.
Yeah.
And so it's an exciting space to be. Just a couple of points from my side as well
Yes.
regarding leadership and character development, because we're talking about women taking the time to develop the character, and we position ourselves in industry within the market to say, ladies, we want to help you become a woman of character. All
Mm,
right, we want to help you become a woman of character. Uh, Now, it doesn't mean to say that if you do leadership and character development, there's something wrong with your character. And I often say when
mm,
leaders and women leaders are willing to develop their character, it is not an admission that their character is weak. It's an
mm,
acknowledgement that their leadership cannot survive
mm,
if their character is weak.
mm.
And just a couple of quotes for the women that are watching and listening to us, that they may want to make a note of in terms of their own personal leadership, is that you cannot succeed in leadership while failing in your personal character. I'll repeat that. You cannot succeed in leadership while failing in your personal character.
Mm.
But the question might be asked, do I need to do character development? Well, do you want your leadership to succeed? Yes, I want my leadership to succeed. Then develop your character. I want to build a house. No, but I don't want to build a foundation. Well, get ready to sit in a house that's going to fall on your head.
Mm.
First things first. You got to do first things first.
Yeah.
There is a law. There's a law of order, Inga, in life in general. All right.
Mm.
You get up in the morning. You don't dress yourself and then go and take a shower. It makes no sense. There's a progressive nature and a process that we are involved in
Mm.
every single day. We are
Mm.
creatures of habit, and there are some things that is undeniable. If anything needs to be built, there's the foundational steps that need to be included. You cannot ignore the foundational steps and expect something to stand. You cannot expect the structure of a house. So whatever you are building in terms of your leadership, it is compromised if the foundation of your personal character has not been built and not been developed. I often use this analogy, and it sounds a little bit funny, but not funny for the people involved in this analogy. If you go to the hospital for an operation, Inga, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you need to go under general anesthetic. It's not the local anesthetic, you know, when they put you out, and you need to pray that you actually do wake up from that operation at the end of the day. Check this out. First things first, right? In order for the surgeon to successfully operate on you, what must be done first? You need an anesthesiologist. Sure, I'm glad I actually said that right the first time. Let me try it again. An anesthesiologist.
I mean, don't tempt fate there, Shawn.
Yeah, let's give it right there. 2 out of 2 is good. Let's try it one more time. You need an anesthesiologist to come in. And what must the anesthesiologist? He must come in and do what? He must
Yeah.
administer
Yeah.
what? Anesthetic. I almost said the anesthesia.
And listen, I'm sitting here in awe. I'm speechless right now.
So an anesthesiologist comes in knowing
Yeah.
his role, knowing the part that he plays in the successful operation,
Yeah.
life-saving operation of that individual. Anesthesiologist comes in. He administers the anesthetic. His job is done. The surgeon and his team takes over. Trust me, Inga, nowhere would you find this on the planet in any medical facility that a surgeon comes in, does the operation, the surgery, and later call in the anesthesiologist to come in and administer the anesthesia. For what?
Mm.
You don't need it. Too late.
Mm.
And in fact, you will check this out. Check this out. We're talking about first things first here, right? Because of the severity of the surgery and the pain associated to it, if you do not administer the anesthetic.
You
Sure.
see, you see.
Yeah. If you don't administer the anesthetic, first, the patient will die, possibly not even because of the operation, but because of the pain associated to the operation, because you failed to administer the anesthetic. Let me say this, woman in leadership, pain will be associated to your leadership if you don't do first things first. Not only will you be pain, but you will be a pain to other people in your life, because your leadership is not in a silo. You are leading people, you're in association, in relationships with people. And if your character is not in place, trust me, you are going to be hurtful and you are going to be hurt. Character is your protection. Your skill set is not your protection. There are things that require strength of character that skill set is not even required. There are moral and ethical and relational obligations in leadership. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the level of your skill, your academic brilliance, your charisma that you have, your personality that you have, and your levels of experience and skills that you have. It's got nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with the level of your character. Let's get first things first. And so as women are in this momentum, it's kind of like this wave of women riding the wave of developing themselves and the influence and getting leadership roles, etc. Absolutely great. We applaud it. We support it. I'm standing back and saying, okay, listen, because I see what many people don't see. It's the reason for me being the creator of and the designer of our leadership and character development program. And in fact, that is the reason why it was birthed in the first place. And there were 2 reasons, but one of the reasons was I saw the pain, the suffering, the hurt, the toxicity, the abuse, the corruption within workplaces, the abuse of power, position, and people caused by leaders. And I realized we don't have a skills shortage and a skills problem. We've got a character problem here. Because once you deal with the character of a person, You change the entire trajectory of that person's leadership, their influence, and how they impact people. Inga, you can put in a company the most healthiest, wealthiest, educated, bright, smart individuals. But if they got a lack of character, you're going to have an immensely toxic environment. So what we are saying to women leaders, you cannot lead with the same way that other people have led in the past. Neither can you prepare for leadership the way other leaders have. If your level of preparation for leadership is exactly the same way it's been for decades gone by, how is your leadership going to be any different in the future? And I've said this earlier, and I'm going to say it again. It is because of the lack of character development in the past that we have produced the levels of leadership that we have and the leadership crisis that we have. Going forward, and we will speak to this, Inga, when we have our session on youth leadership character development, because we're talking about preparing the next generation of leaders, and that's something that we're going to talk about. You got to prepare them differently for them to be different leaders. And I say that to women as well. You need to incorporate developing your character so that you can become a woman of character. Women are so quick, men are so quick, companies are so quick to spend. And by the way, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Leadership development is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide. But if you were to look at the caliber of leaders that companies have, you scratch your head and you ask yourself, where are those billions going to? Because it's definitely not going to empowerment. I've said this recently, that it takes more than skills development to develop an individuals. Leadership development is not a program. It's not a workshop. Leadership development is personal development. And it starts with developing your character, because nothing is more personal than your character. One thing that I need to say, it's one of my favorite quotations before I forget. There's such a lot that I still need to say. And maybe the women out there need to hear this as well. All right. In your endeavor to develop your skills, woman, go ahead and do it. In your endeavor to become skilled, intelligent, bright, smart, and knowledgeable, and have as much information as you want to, and I applaud you, don't stop doing that. Don't ever stop developing your skills. But let me say this to you. Skills development at the expense of your personal character development will produce an educated bully. Skills development at the expense of character development produces a culture of educated bullies. And so I'm going to be brave enough to ask the women that are listening to me, are you an educated bully? Because if your character is not being developed, you are running the risk of being an educated bully. Let me even ask the question to the women that are watching, do you work for an educated bully? Do you work for a woman boss that is an educated bully? She's bright, she's smart, she's pretty, she's gorgeous, she's stylistic, she's branded and what from head to toe, got the latest, greatest name brands and whatever the case might be. So conscious of image and brand, but lacks the character. Maybe there are many women that are sitting and listening to us, Inga, who are the victims of an abusive woman in leadership. And there are women who are watching us wondering, why is this? Why must she be this way? Why is she this way? I'm a woman, she's a woman. One would think there would have been that camaraderie between the two of us. A woman would stand and know exactly how to treat me. I would have thought I would be treated differently. And I'm answering the question for you today. If you want to know why you are being treated the way that you're being treated, it's because of a lack of character. Because when character is weak, when character is absent, there is the presence of abuse. And in order to change company cultures, we got to change it one character at a time. And one of the slogans of our company and our character program is character creates company culture. Character creates company culture. And so
absolutely,
we want to empower women. We want to support women. We want to make sure that women climb and not have the illusion of climbing the corporate ladder. I will say that again. We want to make sure that women climb the ladder and not have the illusion. Because when character is not there, the solid foundation of character, every step you take up, you're going 1 or 2 steps down in the sinking sand.
I mean, as always, there's a lot of concepts that are very meaty, and I mean, it's Chernobyl level mind-blowing that happens, or that is happening, Shawn. And I feel like, and this is what I want to say to whoever is going to watch this podcast, is that the podcast and the whole idea and the ethos behind why I established Ideas Exchange, and you being one of the members of the Geek Squad, as I like to call us, is that I believe it is so important that because there's a lot of people out there that are passionate about their craft, that are, I mean, you said it early in the podcast around, this is all you can talk about. You just can't keep quiet about it. And that is why I wanted to create the community, because there's so much richness in the ideas that we have, and when you create an environment of collaboration. And I want to latch on to what you said earlier on around, if as women, especially if we want to climb the corporate ladder, if we want to grow in leadership, we need men.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And the reason for that is that there's interdependencies, there's collaboration, there's power in that collaboration. And I believe that, it's a yin and a yang. It's we offset each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses. And I mean, that is why you've got marriages, right? There's an offsetting of strengths and weaknesses. And if it's done in a balanced and in a healthy way, you end up with, like, people like to refer to themselves as power couples, and I mean, I think this concept especially has been so eye-opening and enlightening. And thank you, Shawn, because I know you're busy, I know you're hectic out there, because you did not mention that you're also a keynote speaker. So, but I mean, thank you that you've taken this time out to actually sit down and unpack this, because I think it's such an important topic to touch on, and I love how you approach it, because there's this analogy of a parked car, and you can't move a parked car. So if people want to see transformation, if people want to see change, you have to be so uncomfortable that so you can't be in a state of comfort, because you're not going to go anywhere, right? So I salute you and applaud you for being brave enough to coming into the inner sanctum of womanhood and poke the bear, to talk about this, because I believe that until there's a place of discomfort, that is when you're going to start to see that transformation. So as we land this plane, Shawn, how can companies, how can people out there work with you, work with the All Things Are Possible group? In which different ways can they do that?
I appreciate it. Before I answer that question, I just need to make mention of something very, very briefly. And thank you once again for inviting me, Inga. But just one point or two. We have the catchphrases within society. If you're not invited to the table as a woman, build your own table. If you're not invited,
we love that one.
If you're not invited to the table, build your own table.
And or you are the table.
Or you are the table. If you're not invited to the table, build your own table. And build your own table. But let me say this: if you haven't built your character, you ain't building anything but a bad reputation. All right. So while you build your table, how you build will determine if your character has been built. Another phrase that I often use is that woman is taking up space. Woman must take up space. So it's an invitation for women to take up space. In other words, occupy territory and space. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Take up as much space as you can. But let me say this: no space is safe when your personal character is not in its place. I'm going to say that again. No space is safe when personal character is not in its place. So while we're encouraging women to take up space, I'm going to step back and I'm going to be bold enough to say this. If you're a woman and you don't lack character, we don't need you taking up space, because you are going to toxify that space. You're going to make that space abusive. We don't need you taking up space if you don't have the character that's fit for the space.
Okay.
And that just
Now
goes,
the hornet's nest is.
No, for sure. And it's absolutely fine. And I'm unapologetic towards that, because I can tell you right now, there are leaders in space, whether it's men or women. There are leaders who are occupying space, right? Because of their lack of character in that space. That space has become toxic, abusive, and it's become corrupt. They're intimidating, abusing people. People having to see psychologists, psychiatrists, they're on medication, they cannot sleep, mental, emotional trauma. Why? Because the person who is in the space, leads the space, creates the culture in that space. We don't need people taking up space if their character is not in place. Unapologetically, I say that. And that might be offensive to a woman who's watching. Fine, deal with it, get over yourself. It might be applying to a man who gets upset. Deal with it, get over yourself. There are victims in the space because you are in that space. If there are victims in the space because you are in the space, something's wrong with your character.
So Shawn, people who want to make that transformation, how do they work with you?
So very, very diplomatic that you had to guide me away from that, because I was just about to get on a
No,
roll, but I
I
fully
listen.
understand. I fully understand.
Listen.
So like I said at the beginning, this is very provocative. We often say what needs to be said. And so often when we are speaking, we want to get people to the next level, and you cannot tell people what they want to hear and expect them to transform their lives.
Yeah.
We got to have the reality check and tell people, provoking them. So we are not saying this, that women lack character, and that's why they need character development. We are not saying men lack character, that's why they need character development. We are saying whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you are a young person in leadership, irrespective of your culture, background, educational level, you need character when you go into leadership. And that's the space where we are coming and saying, we want to help you, we want to support you. So my website is atapgroup.co.za. You can get me on LinkedIn, Shawn Naidu. ATAP Group, Shawn Naidu, SHAWN, Naidu, NAIDU, ATAP Group, Facebook at Shawn Naidu 7, Instagram at Shawn Naidu 2. But just go ahead and just reach out to me. We offer 4 offerings to corporates. Our leadership and character development program, open to anyone and everyone, whether you're a leader or not. Then our women leadership character development workshop, specifically for women in leadership. Then our youth leadership character development workshop, specifically for young people in leadership. And we're going to be talking about this next session, Inga. And then we have our leadership character coaching for people who want individual character coaching. And thank you for mentioning that. I do speak at conferences, keynote speaker, and I want to encourage and challenge people out there, those who are responsible for their companies, staff, leadership conferences. Reach out to me. You want to hear something different? You want to hear something that is of value to your people, something unique that you don't often hear, and how the character of your people and leaders impact their lives and the lives of your culture and your company? Feel free to reach out to me. I am available nationally and internationally as well. So thank you for that, Inga.
Awesome. To our audience, please take Shawn up on that offer. Please. I mean, I think because we're all about shock value and we're all about wanting to trend. If you want to trend on the right things, hit Mr. Shawn Naidu up. I will be sharing all of his details in the description box, and I am very excited to have him back again, where we will touch on youth in leadership, because as he's rightfully stated, that if you want to fix a society, if you want to fix leadership, you have to approach it in a very systemic way. And so you have to make sure that you target and help and partner with all of the points throughout the system to actually institutionalize the concept of character in leadership. Shawn, a huge thank you.
Thank you.
To our viewers of our podcast, I'm going to say this again: if you have not subscribed, good heavens, why not? As you can see, we cover phenomenal, thought-provoking topics, and the list is most certainly not exhaustive. 2024 will offer and deliver more topics that I think is very poignant, is very current, and that we need to talk about. And this is how we share ideas by one conversation at a time. Shawn Naidu, a huge thank you. And
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. One last thing, I didn't give my email address, Shawn@atapgroup.co.za. I know you probably would put it.
I'll put that in the.
You put that in, Shawn@atapgroup.co.za. Thank you so much. Inga, my final words, the next generation of women leaders will only be as strong as their personal character.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you again. And we chat soon again.
Thank you for inviting me. I loved it. Thanks so much, Inga. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.